This is The Process Shot. I'm Michael. I'm stuck in a haunted movie theater, and I've seen The School for Good and Evil, a new fantasy movie from director Paul Feig. It follows two best friends, Sophie and Agatha, who live in a mundane medieval town, living mundane medieval lives. Sophie idolizes the fairy tale stories that she's read, believing herself destined to become a princess of sorts. But Agatha wants to be as far away from those stories as possible, given her false reputation in the town as a witch. When Sophie wishes to join a mythical school for good and evil, her desires are granted, despite Agatha's attempts to change her mind. One night the two are whisked away to these dueling academies, only for Agatha to be dropped off at the School for Good, while Sophie is sent to the School for Evil. The two are naturally confused and disgruntled. Sophie demands to be placed in the School for Good, while Agatha would rather the two go home entirely. However, they come to learn not only what those in charge need of them, but also why they may not have been placed in the wrong schools after all. I'd say that the movie follows a pretty simple structure, but that's not easy to say when the film is over 2 hours long. I don't know if that was an issue in writing or editing, but it does feel like they wanted to cram as much into the movie as possible. Likely for the sake of people who read the original book. Speaking of which, this is another medieval fantasy film based on a book. What is this, the third in a month? Anyways, I will say that the movie does at least make a good use of its time. It does pack in a dense amount of information, much of which doesn't always pay off until later in the film, but it still comes back to it and makes it worthwhile without veering into something unrelated entirely. It still probably could have used some trimming here and there to tamper back the details which didn't actually matter all that much outside of character development. On that subject, there is plenty that Sophie and Agatha go through to develop as friends, not entirely on an individual level though, at least in Sophie's case. It really ends up being Agatha who gets the most attention here, with everybody else either getting moments that don't really pay off or sticking to a single personality all the way through. Actually, those single personality characters are portrayed almost like caricatures, overplaying and exaggerating their traits without any subtlety, so maybe the movie's issues are in the writing. Whatever the case, the film puts in work trying to hide these flaws under a hefty amount of production value. The art design between the two schools does everything to make them truly distinct, even if it does lay into cliches and expectations for what good and evil aesthetics would look like. There's also a great amount of special effects and CGI, which makes sense for a story that involves magical actions and abilities, but it becomes almost so overbearing that everything that occurs loses any sense of realism. Cinematography doesn't exactly help, since it likes to focus a good amount on showing off these large digital set pieces and characters, nor is there any real sense of a visual signature or style going on. Editing does at least have a few comedic highlights here and there, and one chaotic scene near the end is mostly cut together in a comprehensible manner. But otherwise, it's a practical affair, one which still probably could have used some more time trimming down the story. It again makes me think that this was a movie made more for readers of the original book than an adaptation that could stand alone on its own merits. To put it simply, I feel like this movie is a hit or miss, putting in the effort needed to keep itself from being average, but still not doing much to sell itself any further. The School for Good and Evil, Paul Feig, 2022. 3 stars. If you want to kill 2.5 hours or so with a story that you'll know how it ends before it happens, go ahead and watch this. That's it for me. If you like this review, leave a like. If you have something to add, leave a comment. Subscribe to the channel for more reviews. Also, this is a movie by Paul Feig. His thing is comedy, right? This movie wasn't really all that funny. I mean, it had jokes, but never mind.